coming. Clearly, since Alberto visited us this week, this is very timely and will have immediate relevance to all of us. I'd like to thank all the speakers, and once again, I'd like to thank Jerry Moan and WGIPOA for coordinating this and helping us coordinate it and giving us the opportunity to sponsor it for the West End. We're going to try our best to kind of stay focused and get us out of here at a decent time so everybody can have a hot dog. All right, at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Jerry Moan.
Well, thank you, Sharon, and thank you for hosting us again. We've been doing this for over 20 years, so Jamaica Beach has been a real jewel. If you don't mind, I'm going to sit down. I've got a leg problem. So let's start with our program. You know, we've had Angelo was out there in the Gulf, did a lot of damage, so we're in hurricane season now. And let's listen to a lot of the presentations that we have here and how effective we can become. I'm going to go to Terry Leo Wilson, our state representative. There we go, Terry.
Right there.
Good morning. Thank you all so very much for being here. I'm going to briefly talk about some bills that were specific to emergency relief and disasters that got passed this session. So, but before I do that, I want to highlight something. Tatum is on the back row there. One of the ways that the state gets FEMA money is people will register on their is it called ISTAT? Yeah, ISTAT and PSTAT, okay. So cities will look at, Joe's going to do the interactive map in a little bit where you can see kind of all the hot spots. But after disaster, there is a disaster assessment that we would like everyone to fill out. FEMA bases it on the amount of personal losses in an area. So your city can look at that map and tell where the hot spots are. They can tell still where the utilities are out at. They can tell like a personal amount of damage that was in Jamaica Beach or elsewhere. So it's very, very important that after disaster you fill out that assessment. But that assessment is used from the state to apply for FEMA funds. So if we want the federal government to help us in times of disaster, they've got to have a number. Like, what is your number of losses? And it has to be to a certain level. So that's very important. So please pay attention when he goes over that piece. So that's just a little state business. We had some really good legislation passed this session. House Bill 3 creates an emergency operation plan for public schools. So it just creates more of a data safety center where they'll be able to facilitate the sharing of disaster data among school districts, and so that the state kind of can help and assist there. We had another one that now vehicles who are nonprofit vehicles are exempt from paying vehicle registration fees. So like if EquiSearch has to go out and search for a body, they are exempt from certain state fees that you would normally have to pay on vehicles. The General Land Office is also going to get involved in helping release some of the regulations during a disaster. I'm sorry. Oh, okay, I thought somebody was asking a question. It releases some of the disaster requirements for like if we need to get in like FEMA vehicles, we need to get in some mobile homes for residents. So those type of things, those regulations are released. The big one that I carried and passed, along with Mace Middleton, was on anticipation notes. Thank you, Mayor Brown. Sally Baca was very involved in helping to get that passed. So previously in disasters, there was a bond rating that cities had to have or counties had to have before they could borrow money. Well, obviously, when your area is a disaster, you're not going to get it or qualify for a 4-star bond rating, but you need to borrow money. One of the things that Galveston encountered during Ike was, and it really affected like the Galveston Police Department pension, and I sit on that fund, and you can kind of look at it, it's still trying to recover from Ike. They're doing a great job, but it affected that because when the city can't pay first responders and boots on the ground because the amount of debris has eaten up your reserve funds, then they need to borrow money. So this will allow them to borrow money. It will be at a higher rate, we know that, but it will allow us to continue to pay first responders during emergencies, which really affected, we didn't think about that, but it really affected their pension funds. Because when you lose half of your police force, those are half of officers that were paying into a pension fund that are no longer there. So those things really help cities recover in ways where we have boots on the ground that can continue, but also a longer range plan to make sure that our pension funds of our first responders remain solvent and we're able to borrow money when we need to. We also have a little bit of a, when you have a disaster district coordinator committees, they used to require that the Texas Highway Patrol commanding officer was on each of those. We've loosened those requirements and we have allowed the National Incident Management System to determine who those members will be, because that's not always the appropriate member depending on whatever the disaster is. We also have a bill that will prevent price gouging for medical facilities during emergencies. We have some new navigation district and port facility rules that will make procurement of purchases easier and also directs them on what to do with salvage when we have a huge disaster. And then the last one, we did shore up some of the emergency procedures and protocols for things like when people have kidney dialysis. They were only able to transport a certain way and get reimbursement from insurance companies. If they needed dialysis, obviously during a disaster you may need to use like a helicopter or something like that. So we did look at some certain medical conditions that might need emergency responders like immediately, and there's no way to get to them, so we did make some of those procedures easy. So those are some of the things that the state did. Obviously, we just had Alberto, so this is perfect timing, and that was just a little one. So we're supposed to have a very active season, so if you do that, please make sure that you listen to all of these people on what documents you need to take, medications, but more than that, I just want to encourage you, listen. When they tell you to evacuate, you must evacuate. There is a reason. We live on an island. We have to get out. It's not safe when they tell you it's not safe. We need to leave when we can leave and when we can cross the roads. So thank you very, very much for being here. I really appreciate your support. If you have any questions, I have more details on the bills if you'd like to know that later. Thanks. Yes? I think it's just the governor, and we have to have it up to a certain level of monies. But Mayor Brown, do you know the answer to that question? Marie asked the question that does the president also have to declare the area a disaster in order to get FEMA funds? Okay, he said recently he believes that that is now the requirement, that the president also has declared a disaster. Okay, I can find out that information though and get it to you, Marie.
Now we all have to end up free to talk to Congressman Weber.
Oh, yes.
The county has to meet their threshold, which is 1.6 million. The state has to meet their threshold, which is 54 million, before it can go to the president.
Okay. Okay, yes. So that, good point too, and that's uninsured monies as well. So we want to always be over as a county, over as a city, over as a state, because there'll be some of them in there that in the end are insured, and that will bring our uninsured numbers down. So it's very, very important that you report and assess your disaster so that we can get the federal government to kick in with those funds. I don't know if it's an automatic though, once we reach that threshold for the president to declare it a disaster. I don't know the answer to that.
Still have to go through the FEMA process.
That's good to know. So, but the most important thing is we have to meet a threshold in order to qualify. So, and we've got to tell them what that threshold is. So, thank you very much. Is there any other questions? Okay. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you, Terry. You're doing a great job as our state representative. Thank you. Next, we have down County Judge Mark Henry, but I know he's not here today, and I think he was going to send somebody, but I'm going to ask County Commissioner Joe Giusti to speak for the county. County Commissioner Joe Giusti. How many years as a county commissioner now, Joe?
9, I believe. Been a long time. Been a little while.
It's when I was a little boy. You started.
Been in public service for 46 now. Started with Galveston PD a while back. Been going ever since. So anyway, that's what I do. I'm a public servant. I'm not a politician. Don't say that. Terrible word. Anyway, thank y'all for being here. Y'all are what this is all about. Fortunately, Jerry and Jamaica Beach has been bringing this to y'all for many, many years. And it's a good reminder. Most people know all this information, but they come back every year to see if anything's new, which is not a whole lot new, but it's a great reminder. We just had a great semi-dry run. So take that to heart. I'm not going to stand up here and spout a bunch of stuff off about what to do during a hurricane. You know what you do during a hurricane? You get the hell out. It's pretty simple. And I go back to a story from when I was around the PD during Ike, and I was up in the communications center at the Emergency Ops Center, which was at the San Luis Hotel at the time. People were calling in from Bolivar, pleading for help. Half those people that were calling in are no longer with us because they waited too long. There was no way to get them help. So please, don't put all these first responders in danger by you not doing your job and getting out of Dodge when it's time. You get the opportunity to go, make a vacation out of it. I mean, I know it's kind of hard to do at times because you've got other stuff to do, but take advantage of the fact that nobody's going to be here. If you have a business, nobody's going to be buying your stuff because they're not going to be here. Leave. Just when they tell you to leave, leave. Don't wait for Houston to leave, because we'll have the same thing we had during Rita when more people died on the highway than died from the storm, which the state has made great improvements on that. But I'm just here to remind you to take care of yourself and your family first. If you take care of you and your family, your neighbors take care of themselves, there's a whole lot less stress on all these first responders that are trying to take care of you because you didn't. So, thank you, God bless you, God bless America, and have a great day.
Thanks so much, Joe. Always great to have you. All right, we'll move on, and one who needs no introduction, that's the Galveston Mayor, Craig Brown.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. So nice to see everybody out. I was talking to Jerry earlier. I don't know how many of these have they had now here in Georgia? Over 20. So it's been, every time it's good to get everybody out and rethink what we're going to do and talk about the new that may be going on from the standpoint of hurricane preparedness. At the city of Galveston, we're prepared. As you all out in the audience, I'm sure you can say this is not your first rodeo from the standpoint of looking at these hurricanes. And I want to echo what Commissioner Giusti said. I want to talk a little about evacuations. If you see this storm is coming and you feel uncomfortable for you and your family, get off the island. That's so important. We at the city of Galveston, sometimes we will occasionally call for a mandatory evacuation of the island. We did that with Ike. We did that with Laura, as you may remember, not too long ago. And we don't take those declarations that disaster and calling for a mandatory evacuation, we don't take that lightly, especially this year. We've had multiple discussions with UTMB. If we call for a mandatory evacuation of the island, UTMB's got to evacuate. So we don't take that lightly because that's a major, major accomplishment to move that forward. But if we do call for that, please get your plans set up right now. Find out where you're going to go, the relatives you're going to harass, those types of things, and get off the island. So it's going to be important to do that. And as you know, those that have been through this before, the issues really are not as, it's a concern during the hurricane if it's coming on shore here, but it's afterwards. After we were 2 weeks or more, most of the island without electricity, water, those types of things, that turns into more of a concern for many people than it does actual hurricane coming on the island. So make your plans for evacuation and make those where you may be there for a little while if we get a direct hit coming on the island here. We're prepared. The city of Galveston, I can say unequivocally, the city of Galveston is prepared to assist in any way for anyone on the island here. But if we declare that evacuation, if you stay, you will not have support. We will not have first responders. We will not have emergency support out there for you. So it's going to be important that you get into a location where you feel safe and comfortable for you and your family. I want to thank, as you noticed on these, as you talk, as the new individuals come up this morning and give input on the hurricanes, you'll see the importance of having local government, state government, county government working together. And I want you to say the years I've been on council and serving as your mayor here in Galveston, our rapport with our state representative, Leo Wilson, with our Senator Mace Middleton, with our county commissioners and Joe Giusti has been exquisite. We really work together to make sure everyone on the island stays safe. Thank you for having me, and hopefully we won't have to be concerned about any of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. We're going to miss you when your term ends. Okay. Well, next we have someone who needs no introduction. Our city council member, Marie Robb for the West End. Marie?
Good morning, everyone. It is great to see so many people here. This was an interesting storm. It impacted the west end of the island much differently than it did the east side of the island. And some of the things that I'm making note of, since we all know, especially if you were on the bay side, because this was one of the largest wind fields we've ever experienced with just a tropical storm, the high tides came up and they stayed. They never receded. What should have been low tide stayed high, and then high tide came in some more. So I would say some of the lessons learned from this and some of the biggest issues I saw, and one of the topics we have on council this week has to do with, one, short-term rentals. Short-term rentals are not putting their, well, not all, bad players are not securing their houses when there's a storm. So we had a lot of issues with furniture, mainly trash going out, where it was going down the street and so forth. So that's something that we will be covering in the city, and I know you're coming up, we're following some of your things as far as the license and so forth. But that is something we will be putting in under enforcement. The other piece of that, and I had at least 5 incidents where this happened, was contractors not securing their spots. So we had flying boards, we had one in Palm Beach, we had flying foam, we had things that were damaging properties. So that'll be another ordinance that we'll be putting into play that contractors will have to secure. We already have an ordinance for porta potties, but I know that wasn't followed because I got a number of pictures of turned over porta potties. So we will have a better system in place to follow that. But like everyone said, that we need to hear the warning. I know we're designated, everyone is saying we're going to have a lot of named storms this year. But I'm going to mention a meteorologist that I follow, because I suggest you all just at least look him up. He is a meteorologist out of Orlando, Florida, Eric Burris, B-U-R-R-I-S, and he is with SWESH too. But he and another meteorologist out of Savannah, Georgia, have developed a system where they have been spot on for the last 4 years. And you can, every Tuesday at 9 o'clock Central Time, on they're on Facebook, Twitter, whatnot, they do a tropical system update. And they do not have us marked as a hot spot, so I'm gonna knock on wood. Not that I'm superstitious, but I have to say with Alberto, if you look at their modeling, they modeled it exactly what happened. So it is worth looking at his hurricane updates every Tuesday because they have been spot on. I'm going to apologize for the city right now because I think we did not do a good job of getting the weather information out with this storm. I know I was trying to distribute an update every 3 hours, pulling from 3 weather sources, but the city has to get better at putting out information. Be prepared, be ready to leave. We will take care of you the best of our ability. I'm going to give you all my phone number in case you don't have it. It's 409-256-4518. Text me is the best way to get a hold of me. And I am here to help you. Craig and I work closely together. And let's hope we have a nice, mild system. We can put the things in place that will keep us even safer. And happy summer, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Marie.
I want to do one more shout out to this guy, Ryan Dugan. Yeah. Because if you haven't noticed what they are doing, and I got to tour the plant this past week, they are replacing the wooden poles with fiberglass poles. And if anyone saw the picture for when there was those tornadoes in Northwest Houston, and there was the one where the transmission line had fallen, once they removed the wires, that pole popped back up. And that's the major difference between wood and fiberglass. And if you're looking for them as you're driving, you can tell which poles they are. They're a little shinier, and they have a cap on top. And I think Ryan's putting somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000 new poles throughout the island. Yep, and we're going to hold him to that. But I know we've already seen a difference, so I want to give him a big shout out. Thank you.
Thanks, Maureen. Brian's going to be talking a little bit. He can tell us more about it. Okay. Another one who needs no introduction, and that's our city manager for the city of Galveston, Brian Maxwell. Brian, welcome. You got your IP shirt on.
And what are we all going to be doing tonight? We'll be watching the College World Series, right? Thank y'all for coming. We did have a good drive, so it wasn't a dry run. These tweener storms, and that's what I call them, they're the most challenging for most municipalities. They're challenging for the Weather Service. They're challenging for everybody. And the city will always post weather updates when we get a release from the National Weather Service. It is imperative that you follow the National Weather Service in the event of these things. In terms of evacuation and things like that, absolutely follow the cities, follow the National Weather Service. The tide levels for this storm changed pretty much at every advisory, and I don't think anybody really had a good clue as to how long this was going to stay and how long these winds were going to continue to hold the tides up. Again, these tweener storms, you know, I will tell you that for the most part, the Hurricane Center, the National Weather Service, they've gotten really good at the big storms. They know they're bad, they know they're big, and they tend to behave a little bit better than these little ones that do all kinds of crazy stuff. Alberto, I would have to argue that somebody was trying to meet a quota to call it Alberto when it made landfall. It didn't really look like a tropical storm of any typical nature when it made landfall. But that thing was pushing huge amounts of water because of the winds. Not tremendous winds. My daughter had higher winds in the Heights a month or two ago with whatever that was that blew through there. But she also didn't have to contend with 5 feet of water like we did here, and that was where the big issue came. So I want to make sure everybody understands, follow our city page, follow our emergency management page for road closures and for service updates, and we will post whatever weather updates we get from the National Weather Service. That is the official spot to get your information. We also have a private weather service. If it differs greatly from the National Weather Service, we will verify that with the Weather Service before we release anything. Now, I will always give background information to our council members and things like that, you know, what our private service is saying, because we have to have planning for where we stage equipment and things like that. But your safety is our #1 priority. It always is. And I think we've all got the routine down for the big storms, especially those of you that live on the West End. I don't think I have to tell any of you to get out. I think you all understand that. And we've all seen pictures of the cities that have been hit by some of these major storms, and we know what happens. Those of us that were here during the night, we completely understand what happens. But with these little storms, it's important to stay tuned, follow the Weather Service, follow the city's webpage, follow the city's Facebook page, because that's where everybody gets their news now, true or not, is from Facebook. And so we'll continue to keep you updated. I also want to, we're a couple of announcements. He's not here today. Our fire chief will be retiring at the end of the month. That's decades of experience in our fire department we're going to be losing. So if you get a chance to see our fire chief, wish him well. He's worked a long time here in Galveston. The second one I want to mention, and he'll get to talk to you a little bit, is we're going to be losing our chief forecaster from the National Weather Service over here, Dan Riley. We christened Dan Riley during Ike. I was up in the Weather Service with him. He can't be retiring because he was a kid then, and now he's retiring. But we wish him well as he goes on. But I will tell you that when Bill Reed retired, I had a 10-year agreement from him that held that we didn't have any storms. So I will get that same 10-year agreement from Dan on his way out the door, and I believe he'll sign it for us. So anyway, thank you guys.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate what you're doing. Well, Marie mentioned CenterPoint Energy, and so let's hear from Ryan Dugan what's going on the West End.
Oh, yeah. All right, everybody. I decided to celebrate my birthday today, starting here in Galveston before I go do other things and won't be available.
Still 25, right?
Exactly. Still pushing 25. It's great. So I can't tell you enough how great it's been to work with Mayor Craig Brown and obviously City Councilman Marie Robb. and also the mayor of Jamaica Beach. It has been phenomenal to work with them throughout these storms and various other incidents we've had across the board. Marie went ahead and alluded to it. We did do an inspection of roughly, I think it was 4,800 poles down here on the west end after we had those storms previously in January, because not only do we have hurricanes, but we also have cold freezes that like to come down a little too far for my liking. So we did do investigations of all those poles. We have a bunch of work orders out there right now. They were intended to be worked on, and then we got hit with a storm called derecho that I've never heard of in my 37 years of life until back in May. So that was a good EOP run for us. And I'm going to allude to what Brian said. Those kind of storms are different for us. If it's a hurricane, we have the opportunity to go ahead and spearhead, start talking to the other companies, getting them down here. For tornadoes or something like that, it's an instant impact. And once we get to a certain threshold, we start to trigger that key. So we triggered EOP, which is where, you know, me, my team, we're working 16-hour days along with the linemen, trying to get lights on as quickly as possible in the various destructive areas and stuff like that. So she alluded to the fiberglass poles. We do have a program where we are changing out all of the poles on the circuit level to fiberglass poles. We have shown that they are very resilient. We only had one issue with one of them in the derecho storm, and like she said, once the wires were picked back up, it popped right back up, and we were able to keep moving on. So that's kind of the benefit that we're seeing from those poles. They're also able to sustain a higher amount of windstorm and move on from there. So another thing we're doing is we brought down the senior VP, and we alluded to the fact that we need to go with stainless steel bolts and all fiberglass arms and fiberglass material. She has agreed to it. It is an 8 times amount of cost than what the other bolts are, but we're going to do it because it is necessary for the resiliency of the island. So another thing that the mayor wanted to bring up is our kind of right tree, right place, and tree trimming. It was unfortunate, and you know, rest in peace, the gentleman that passed away. It was in May, correct? That was an unfortunate incident. He made contact with the line. If there's a point, or you know, you hire a tree trimmer and you think it's too close to the power lines, feel free to contact us. Let us know. If we go out there and deem that it is too close to the power line, we will get with our forestry and go ahead, and sometimes we may end up having to remove the tree, but we will negotiate that with you. We'll talk to you about it and figure out what's the best direction. I will say that trees are typically the #1 issue with power lines when it comes to these storms. They're typically the ones that lay across the line or something like that, and we have to go out there, remove those trees, and then be able to pick up the wire. So we've got more in the pipeline. Contractors, you're going to be seeing a lot of them. You've probably seen quite a few of them on 3005 as you were approaching Jamaica Beach, if you were coming from Galveston, East End. That is wood poles that we identified that were already needing to be replaced. They were replaced with our EOP poles currently, which is the steel poles, but all of those poles along 3005 will be changed out with concrete poles in the near future. Along with those concrete poles, all of those intermediate poles that are distribution will be changed out to fiberglass poles as well. So we're definitely hard and heavy on a resiliency project for the area, and we're just going to keep pushing along and trying to do our best out here. So thank you, everyone, and I appreciate your time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I can speak to that. We do have an external communication engagement team that actually goes to the TV stations and the radios to broadcast any and all information. I believe we're still working with 7:40 a.m. So that when we do have storms like this, we are providing them with the proper information. We're also providing it to the local leadership as well as the county and the state. We do have other entities that will be operating that. We have somebody that will be in the war room with the county and the city that will also be delegating information. They may be using a sat phone or something like that so that we can communicate back and forth. But we also have a radio system that we work internally so that we're able to talk to our linemen and also get all the proper information out to everyone. Another thing that we do have is we have a power alert service. It is tied to your cell phone. You're able to put that in. We do recommend everybody sign up for it. I will say it is not perfect. It does not know everything. And I've spoken to a few people, you know, they'll get the power alert saying lights are back on, but the lights are still off. It's not a perfect system, but I can at least provide you with further information. And I try to share that as much as possible. I use the WGIPOA page when it's a large scale incident where we're affecting Sea Isle, Terramar, Jamaica Beach, stuff like that. I'll typically go to the WGIPOA page if you haven't seen it on Facebook to provide some information there, or I'll go directly to the various Facebook pages to actually provide information if it's in a localized area. So we try to get as much information out as possible. It's not always great. It's not a perfect system. But, you know, like I said before, we are your neighbors. We are here for you. And we're going to do everything we can to keep the lights on and continue with the growth of the island that's coming. Yes, ma'am.
I know that during this last, all the storms in North Texas, your outage map kind of got a little overwhelmed. Can you update us on improvements planned for that so that it stays up?
Yes, at this current time, it is actually still down. We ran into an issue. It's a technical issue. I'm not totally tech savvy, but what I was told by my director is that we are coming out with a new map system that is going to show all the damage locations and everything else like that, but we had to go in a different direction to be able to obtain that, and they are full blast on getting that considering it's hurricane season, and they're going to try to get that ramped back up as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. In an event of a storm, and there's a mandatory evacuation to the Gulf of the island, do you shut power off to certain parts of the island, or do you keep power on entirely until some point in time you have to go?
So what we do is we switch to a one-trip system. So the way the substations work is they're on a 3-trip system during normal, regular days. So if there's something causing an issue on the line, the substation fuse will operate, and it'll operate 3 times. When we have an impact storm coming in, we will change that to 1. So once there's an incident on that circuit, it will shut the power off. So, but we do keep the lights on as long as possible up until the point that there is some kind of incident on that circuit. And there's a multitude of substations and circuits throughout the island that feed the various, Spanish Grands and everything else like that. Everybody's kind of on a spread out system. We've got Stewart and West Bay, so they kind of spread out along that. So it's just a matter of did it impact that line or not, and where did it impact the line. So during a regular storm, we will try our best to do switching as well to get as many lights back on, and then we'll have to come out and make repairs at the localized incident location. But yes, we do switch to a one-trip system so that once there is an impact, it goes ahead and shuts off, and then we can do damage assessment to find out what the issue is.
Can you talk about how you back it?
Yes, so how do I categorize this? So a pull-top switch is on the main circuits, and what we utilize those for is to kind of find the pockets of damage and limit the amount of source. We are inputting more of them because we're finding that in certain positions, there's been a lot of openness between the Gulf or the Bay coming back and causing further issues. So we decided to install a few more pull-top switches, and you'll see those on the fiberglass poles. And they're also going to have the steel, stainless steel like we talked about. But that is, the whole purpose of that is to keep the lights on for as many people as possible. Yes, sir.
I have a generator and I have where I isolate my house. Is there any kind of procedure
Yes, so if you have a standby generator, you have to install a automatic transfer switch. If it is a portable generator that you're using, we ask that you shut the main off so that it does not backfeed whenever the lights come back on. Once the lights do come back on, and you'll tell that by the neighbors are back on, at that point in time, shut off your generator and you should be able to go back to your main, turn it back on, and lights should come back. But that is a very important step if you're using a portable generator. Yeah, so it's best to just go ahead and turn your main off. If you're anticipating a storm coming in, it is best to shut your main off. Now, that is not the same for natural gas. Natural gas, we tell people to leave natural gas on and flowing because we don't want to get water in the system, but when it comes to electrical and the water's rising, especially what we saw from this recent storm, you do want to shut off the main so that it doesn't get water into there, or if it does, it's not going to, start anything from that point on. So I know there are GCFI plugs and everything else like that that are set to protect us, but doing these proper steps ahead of the time will really benefit you in the long run. Yes, sir. The pull-top switches are manual switches down here. The reason being is because we tried to put the automated switches down here, and the weather down here is not appropriate for that. It had some system failures, so we went back to the manual switches. We are trying to introduce some of those at the Stewart's Hub to see how long they will last and if they are still working in a capable position, but we're not going to put that on y'all until we know the fact that they're going to operate correctly. Before we run the diagnostics on. Yep. That is correct. We do have to patrol the circuit before it is energized. Because the last thing we want to do is re-energize a circuit and it goes back out. And it drops out for whatever damage is on there. So we try to isolate as much as possible to as little as possible. We'll cut in jumpers or do something to that effect to try to limit it as much as possible. But yeah, we will not bring a circuit hot until we know for the fact that all the damage is completed. Yes, so coincidentally, my staff consultant, Sam Voorhees, is here. He would be one of the patrol inspectors who would actually go out and look for the damage assessment, as well as we do two-man trucks. The linemen will get in trucks. We call them two-mans. They'll go out and also do inspections. Their first part is to cut and clear, do as much as they can to get that circuit hot, which may mean they open up fuses or something like that because there is damage behind the fuse, and then they will light up the circuit. But yes, we do have a lot of guys that are going to be participating in that. Yes, sir.
In Beta, a couple of years ago, we had several power surges within like 3 or 4 minutes. We lost ACs, refrigerators, and we were underwater for 7 days. Is there anything other than a whole house power surge protector that we can do to protect the bid?
As much as I wish I could say something along those lines, that would be you'd have to consult with an electrician to be able to ask them what is the best part of that. So when it ends up being behind the meter, CenterPoint doesn't really have a lot of control in regards to what you place your appliances on or anything like that. I wish we had more, but we stop at the meter, basically.
What do you
Yes.
use in your house?
I have a standby generator. Yes.
One more question. You mentioned the gas lines will remain active.
Yes.
For those of us who are fortunate to have gas and generators that run off gas, in the event of an evacuation, we leave the gas line on then, shut the gas off.
So I used to be on the gas side, and now I'm back on the electric side. In terms of CenterPoint Energy natural gas, now Texas Gas may have a different policy based on it being on the island, but as far as CenterPoint natural gas, we do tell people to leave the gas running because it will continue to flow and it will keep water from seeping into those lines. If the water seeps into those lines, then you have another problem where you have to call a plumber to your house and get those let out and everything else like that with air, and then we can come back on and restore service. But if you don't leave it on, you take on, there's a potential for you to take on water into those pipes, and then you'll have to get a plumber or someone to maintain those lines afterwards. Have one more question? That was, okay. Yeah, so Texas Gas may have a different. Yeah, that would honestly have to go to Texas Gas on that one, since they are the ones who maintain and operate the island. As far as CenterPoint is concerned, when we see Harvey or something like that, we just tell you to keep it on and maintain it as long as possible. And if it does go out, we do have, as far as CenterPoint is concerned, we do have EFBs that will automatically shut gas off to either homes and or on the main line if it does find an impact, but it's very rare for a natural gas system to see an impact from the storm. My mom's calling me for my birthday. Thank you. That's okay. Any other questions? All right, well, I appreciate y'all's time, and thank y'all for letting us in.
Thanks so much, Brian. We'll always learn so much from you. All right, we'll move on. I had down Bill Reed, but he wasn't available, and he was going to send Lance Wood. Lance, you're on now. Lance Wood is the senior officer for the National Weather Service, and he should have some information about all these storms we're getting.
All right, I'm actually Dan Riley, also part of the team at National Weather Service Houston Galveston. Been at this meeting many of the last 15 years, and happy to be here with you this morning. One of our best, I think, hurricane preparedness meetings, and it's very important because you all live on a barrier island, so we want to make sure you all are plugged in. I do want to talk about Alberto. Honestly, the storm Alberto was almost irrelevant to the tides we got. We had strong winds blowing all across the Gulf, the entire length of the Gulf, pushing a lot of water up on land. Enough to cause us to issue a coastal flood watch at 5 a.m. on Monday, forecasting the 5 feet of water that we got here. So something very important to me is that you all are aware of all that ahead of time. And we really want you to plug in. Remember the website, weather.gov. Weather.gov. Click on Jamaica Beach, and you'll get all that information. Monday afternoon, I gave a briefing to emergency managers, elected officials, on 5 feet of water and roads being flooded. And we want you all, and we put that same briefing on social media. So again, please stay informed. It's such an important part of the hurricane season here in Jamaica Beach. Same thing for a storm like Harvey, same thing for the freeze of 2021. We want to give you that information so you're not caught off guard. As far as the hurricane season goes, we're looking at record warm waters in the ocean. These storms feed off warm tropical waters, and they've never been higher where these storms develop. In fact, right now, the waters are more like August than they are June. So we're way ahead of schedule. Typically, the season really ramps up in August, peaks in September. Wouldn't be surprised to see a fairly active July as well, given how warm the waters are out there. As far as this next system developing down in the Bay of Campeche, I wouldn't worry about that one. It's going to stay south, drift over into Mexico. But unlike Alberto, the wind field is not the same. It's not going to extend all the way up across the Gulf. So we won't have quite the tide levels that we had with that one. The other thing I want to really hit hard is rip currents. We've had several rip current fatalities in this area this year. And sometimes that gets forgotten. You know, we think about the coastal flooding, tornadoes, high winds, but the rip currents can be really dangerous even on a day like today, and certainly this week. So don't forget about that rip current hazard. Always swim near a lifeguard. Keep an eye on those flags. You know, the lifeguard, the beach patrol here does such an outstanding job, and we communicate with them on a daily basis, putting up those red flags on dangerous days. So don't forget about that either. And we have a lot of vacationers here that might not be thinking about that. So I did want to emphasize the rip currents as well. As far as the Weather Service, again, we'll be putting out those briefings by social media, by web, even on YouTube. You'll hear a recorded briefing, the same one we give your elected officials. Plug in, don't get caught off guard, be aware, and we'll get through this hurricane season. Looking at a very active one, as I said, forecast numbers are way above average. Will we get one? You never know. And we don't know where they're going to track when they form, but there's going to be a lot of them out there, but we're pretty confident of that. So our chances of getting a hit are certainly above average. I did want to ask the audience here, how many of you all lived in this area for Hurricane Ike in 2008? All right. How many of you all are new to the area since Hurricane Ike? All right, so everyone should have raised their hands, and there's quite a few. I want to point out this pole here. You can see the Ike water level marked right there, about 6.5, 7 feet above ground, even in this building, up to the locker level. So you have an idea now what 5 feet of water will do based on what happened this week. You know, that's really valuable information. You can translate our tide forecast to flooded area. But you add, with a hurricane, you may add another 8 to 10 feet to that. So keep that in mind. And you know, we got Ike as a data point there for about a 12 to 13 foot surge. So again, stay informed, build a kit, have an evacuation plan, where you're going to go, and we'll get through this hurricane season. Thanks, everyone. Any questions for me? Any questions? All right, thanks again.
Thanks so much, Lance. Appreciate your presentation. Let's move on to John Herman, Director of Galveston County Emergency Management. John? There he is. You have an audience out there, John.
Yeah. So I'm not the Director of Emergency Management. I am a contractor to the county, and I am the Emergency Preparedness Administrator. And my role is to provide the community emergency response team to communities in Galveston County. So it is my job to train individuals just like yourselves to help out when there are times of emergency in the community. And the way in which you can join the Community Emergency Response Team is you have to go through a 24-hour CERT Academy, where we will train you in skills and preparedness and help you take care of yourself, your family, your property, and your neighbors. And it's a great group, and we have quite a few members here on the west end of the island and in Jamaica Beach. And in September, we're hoping to hold a CERT Academy right here in this building. We are trying to confirm those dates with the city. And once we get those confirmed, that they're actually on our flyer on the table over here, we hope that many of you will join us. And if you have a service spirit and you want to help others and help yourself, we can give you the skills and the knowledge to do so. But from the Office of Emergency Management, we have Ms. Laura Norman, and I would invite Laura to come up and say something regarding the Office of Emergency Management for Galveston County. But thank you very much, and maybe visit our table when the meeting is over, talk to our volunteers, and get the information on how to become part of your community emergency response team. Thank you so much. Oh, by the way, give them Aggies, and let's win tonight.
Beat the hell out of Good morning, everyone. My name is Laura Norman, and I work for County Judge Mark Henry, who is your Director of Emergency Management. I'm the Deputy Emergency Management Coordinator. That's a lot of words. I'm a professional problem solver. So, you're my problem kids, right? Actually, the fact that you're here on a Saturday morning tells me that you are already part of the solution, and I am so grateful for that you are taking the time to stay engaged and to prepare. So I have a couple of things I'd like you to do today. One of them is, I want you to stay informed. You keep hearing that a lot, you have a lot of choices, but if you stop by our little booth over there, we've got a QR code, I'll hold it still. You can also go to gcoem.org. This will connect you, this link will connect you to the Jamaica Beach mass notification system, the City of Galveston mass notification system, and the county notification system. I recommend that you get notifications from where you work and where you live, because things happen quickly sometimes and you just might need a push. In addition to hurricanes, we have all other kinds of hazards around here that we prepare for. Hurricanes we can usually see coming a little bit, but not always. One of the things I learned from my friend Dan Riley back there this year from the National Weather Service is that the Category 5 hurricanes that we've been seeing, not here, obviously. We've never had one hit Galveston Island, as far as I can tell. Even the 1900 storm had winds of a Category 3-4. It was a 4, Dan? So those Category 5 storms are building so quickly that a lot of times, in fact, most of those storms, and there's been about 11 or 12, I think, that have hit on the Atlantic here in the United States, they build up in less than 72 hours. So pay attention. When the Weather Service is putting this stuff out, it's very quick. Hurricane Michael that hit Florida had hurricane strength winds 200 miles inland. Holy cow, that's like center Texas. That's like past the really good Buc-ee's, you know? So make sure you're listening and getting that good data and continue to stay engaged. I'm very grateful for that. The other thing I want you to do is I want you to rat out the neighbors, okay? We have a program in the state of Texas, and we've got some of our friends back here from the state. Aaron's waving his hand. I know Mike's around here somewhere. Those gentlemen are part of the state of Texas Emergency Management Division, and my husband's one of those, so I have to tell you this or I'll be in trouble. But STEER is the State of Texas Emergency Management Registry. And this is for anybody in our community who may need assistance during an emergency or a disaster, especially in an evacuation. It's a planning tool for us so that I know how many buses to order. It might be that we have people that have access or functional needs. Some folks just don't have a car now after COVID when the factories kind of slowed down a bit. So pay attention to the neighbors. It's also on our website. You can stop by the booth and get the code here. I put my mother on there every year, even though my little sister has sworn up and down she's going to take her out in an emergency. She happens to be in Canada today, so that's not very helpful. So make sure that you are taking care of each other. Register for STEER if you know somebody that might need it. We're not going to drag them out of their house screaming. We're going to check on them and say, hey, have you got a plan? Have you made a decision about what you want to do? And they'll check back until they get positive confirmation with that person. So that's another just layer of protection and preparedness that you can help us with. Again, thank you so much for showing up today. It really does mean a lot to us in emergency management to know that you guys are so connected. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I have John Herman, but we didn't have John. Okay. That'll be Kyle Baden, Fire Chief of Jamaica Beach. Kyle? Yes. Welcome back.
Good morning. So I get to tell you all the nitty-gritty stuff. So to start with, hurricane events in particular are extremely well coordinated with our state and local governments, first responders, the National Weather Service. We're all involved. We have briefings up to 4 times a day as the storm track starts to solidify. Those briefings are held with the state, the county, the local governments, the National Weather Service. Additionally to that, our local first responders, we have a group called the Galveston Marine Response. It's a joint effort that includes the Galveston Fire Department, Jamaica Beach Fire Department, Galveston Island Beach Patrol, Galveston Police Department, Jamaica Beach Police Department, and the Galveston County Sheriff's Office. There's a couple of other players that are involved in that as well. We meet after the briefings with the National Weather Service, and we're the boots on the ground that determine where we're going to put assets as the flood waters come up. As Dan told you, during Ike, the water reached the top of the gear lockers here in the station. Since Ike, 3005 was raised 2.5 feet in Coveview, but only 1.5 inches in Jamaica Beach. So water will be over the road fairly quickly with a surge. Evacuation orders are given to provide you enough time to evacuate before the evacuation routes are compromised. Realize that this time, for the next 2 years, every road that leads out of Galveston is under construction. Highway 36, I-45, 146, Highway 6, all under construction at this time. Leave early to give yourself time to get through the construction. Storm surge can start to affect the evacuation routes up to 24 hours before landfall. We saw this in Ike. Many people that came down Thursday night saying, oh, I'll leave Friday morning. Friday morning, the roads were impassable. On the west end, you could also get a secondary surge from the bay once the eye passes. This is what causes a lot of damage. It does fine with the surge coming in, but that reverse surge that comes back out brings a lot of debris with it. Water over 6 inches can move an automobile. 35-mile-per-hour winds are the upper limit of our aerial apparatus. Meaning, once the wind gets over 35 miles an hour and we have a structure fire, we're not using an aerial apparatus to put it out. 3 feet of water is the maximum that we would traverse in a fire truck. Once the water gets over 3 feet over the road, we can no longer get to you. Once water reaches 3 feet and winds are over 35 mile an hour sustained, fire department operations will cease. Meaning, at that point, we're trying to get ourselves out. Know that if you choose to stay, it could take days before we're able to get to you for assistance. You will be living without power, water, or sewage. If you choose to stay, please write your Social Security number on both arms with a Sharpie pen. This allows me to identify your body in case you die. The reason I say put it on both arms is if the alligators in the park decide to eat one of your arms, it's on the other one. During Ike, Jamaica Beach had 3 houses back on Marina that burned to the water line because there was no way that we could reach them during the storm. And the wind from the storm just fueled the fire spread. During Harvey, which was a tropical storm at that point, we assisted Galveston with a house fire in Terramore that was a total loss. We were severely restricted in our ability to fight the fire due to conditions and flooding. In fact, one fire truck from Galveston had to get towed out after we finished fighting the fire. It's unique to fight fire when fish are jumping in front of you. For a Category 1 to 3 storm, we will be evacuating off the west end, but we will be on the island. But we will not be here in Jamaica Beach. This is to protect our equipment from any flooding. For a Category 4 or 5 storm, we will evacuate to Santa Fe. A good rule of thumb for you, the general public, is if the fire department is evacuating, it's past time for you to evacuate. We're the guys that run into burning buildings. When evacuating, take your medications, food, water for you and for your pets. If you need assistance in evacuating, please get on the steer list. As Laura mentioned, this must be re-registered each year. Marie mentioned this. Loose items on your decks, docks, garages should be moved upstairs and secured. All of those things become debris in the debris field and cause further damage. Boats should be taken the water and off the island, unless you want it to end up alongside the causeway, which is where a lot of them ended up. Empty your refrigerator, because you can count on the power being out for some period of time. This question came up for Ryan. Texas Gas will cut off the gas when storm surge is predicted to be high enough to cover the meters and they're anticipating storm debris. The reason being storm debris starts damaging gas meters, causing gas leaks. At that time, they will shut the gas off. So even if you have a gas generator, if your gas meter is gone, you no longer have a gas generator. If you're utilizing a generator, please ensure you either have a transfer switch or the main breaker is tripped to prevent backfeeding of down power lines. Do not operate a portable generator in an enclosed space to prevent carbon dioxide poisoning. Also avoid running next to open windows and doors. Once the power goes out, lift stations will cease to function. Lift stations are what move the sewage from your house to the sewage treatment plant. Cell phone towers and the internet local exchange carrier locations have approximately 18 hours of battery backup before they will go down. I say approximately, it's closer to 12. Xfinity, many of you have Xfinity. The gray boxes that you see on the side of the road that are about 2 by 2, that's their local exchange carrier box. It doesn't take much water to overwhelm those and shorten those batteries out. Once those go out, you no longer have internet. Once the storm passes, the fire department will return to assess the city as soon as it is safe to do so, or safe for us, and we will begin to communicate with the city staff and elected officials on debris, road conditions, etc. to get people started on the entrance. Any questions? All right, thank you.
Thanks so much. All right, next we'll hear from Brian Franklin, Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Galveston. Byron. Here he comes. So glad to have you, Byron.
Thank you, Jerry. I'm glad to be here. Hello, I'm Byron Franklin. I'm the Emergency Management Coordinator for the City of Galveston. So, the wisdom that I have to impart on you, and you've already heard it before, we work very closely with the National Weather Service. We work with Dan Riley, and we work with our Public Information Office. When, this event this week, we had a lot of coastal flooding. We had extremely high tides, and they're still very high. We still have a pretty good south wind, about 15 miles an hour. That's kind of just blowing that water still. And Alberta made landfall yesterday. And so we're going to have that. Probably the southeast wind is going to be probably going on for at least another 24 hours. The good news is that this system that Dan mentioned earlier is really not going to impact our area, which is great. We go through hurricane preparedness. Our office has grown by one. We are very proactive in pushing the message of if we issue a mandatory evacuation, please, this is just property. Evacuate. Go to high ground. Go, and someone said earlier about going on vacation. Go to San Antonio and ride it out there in an air-conditioned hotel instead of being here. During this island, it was miserable for those of us that had to stay and work, 5-6 weeks without power. The running water. The city has done a lot of improvement. Our Public Works Director, Trino Pedraza, has done an excellent job. We've done a lot of projects in mitigating some of our low-lying areas, our power, our pump stations. They all have generators, our water treatment plants. They've all been mitigated up to 20-foot. We have generators for all of those, but we don't know what the next storm is going to look like. And the thing to remember is you can run from the water and you can hunker down from the wind. We didn't have a really big wind event, but what we had was water. And that's the thing that concerns us. Once the water pushes in, if we get an Ike-like event, 18 foot of water, there is not a lot our first responders can do. Typically when the winds reach 55 to 60 miles an hour, we can't send people out on boats. We certainly can't launch helicopters to make pickups off roofs and things like that. And so you're gonna have to ride it out. And the easy solution is to evacuate. Commissioner Giusti, I was in that dispatch room when he mentioned earlier about the people that were on the pier, and we were getting phone calls from people over in Bolivar, and the simple solution is that they had left. Some of those folks would be alive today. The people that were on the pier, they called continuously, and there was nothing we can do. It's very frustrating as a first responder that you commit your life to helping folks out when they need it most, and you can't risk your life, especially in those conditions, to do a rescue. I mean, it was an impossible task. So please follow us, the City of Galveston webpage. Please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, X now. Everybody's so used to the Twitter page. Follow us on X. The city has an Instagram page as well. When we get updates from our partners at the National Weather Service, we push those out almost immediately. As soon as we get them, it goes to our PO office, and then they push all that out. So please follow us. Stop by our booth, pick up a hurricane preparedness guide. And I appreciate y'all having me today. Thank y'all. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We coordinate our messages. You can follow the county, you can follow the city page. TDEM, the Texas Department of Emergency Management, they have a web page, but we get all of our information from the National Weather Service. When there's a storm in the Gulf, that comes through the National Hurricane Service. And those messages are distributed all to us simultaneously. And we have a very close working relationship. We talk with the county almost every other day, if not daily. The same thing with our partners over at TDEM. Dan, I have his personal cell phone. We talk way late into the early morning hours, late at night. We don't touch base at least once or twice a week. Something's up. I hate that he's retiring because he's been a great partner for us over all these years. So we coordinate a lot of what we push out. The biggest thing is we've attended meetings up in Houston and met with those guys. Myself, Laura Norman, we're up in Houston, and the way the evacuation works is we're a coastal community, we get to go first. And so we have begged Houston, do not, that far into Houston, the only thing that they really have to worry about is wind. And we saw some of that when they had the tornado outbreak a few months ago downtown. You're going to get the broken glass, you're going to get those things like that. They're not going to get a tidal surge like we get here on the coast. We had 5 foot above average tides here. That didn't impact Houston at all. And so our message to them is please let us get our folks out first. And then if you decide that, you want to do something along those lines in the low-lying areas of raised bayou and stuff like that, push that message out at least, after we get ours out. We all kind of remember all the traffic jams and all the things that happened during Rita. And so we met early. We started meeting in February on this. So that decision falls to the elected officials. For the county, it would be the county judge. For the city, it would be our mayor. Myself, the city management staff will meet with Mayor Brown and we'll discuss the options of doing a mandatory evacuation. So the voluntary evacuation is, we've got a storm that's out in the Gulf. So we like to have the evacuation done typically 36 hours before actual landfall hits. You know, the science that the National Weather Service and the Hurricane Center has, they can pretty much accurately pinpoint before it would be a swath of up to 600 miles along the coast where a storm was going to make landfall. Now they've got it narrowed down to roughly 300 miles. That's about more or less. So the technology that's out there, you know, we have built into our evacuation for voluntary and mandatory because of some of the road construction on Interstate 45. We have built an additional 20 hours, almost a complete day before that. We also, not to show any disrespect to the National Weather Service, but we have a private weather service that we use in the city. And we'll sit and we'll talk. Dan will be in those meetings for the evacuation. Should we have one here that occurs before he retires, but the National Weather Service will sit in on those meetings and we'll discuss it. The biggest thing, the category system that we've used in the past, a Hurricane 2 or 3 or whatever, we kind of don't look at that anymore. We look at what the storm surge is going to be because the water is the most dangerous thing of a storm. We lose more people to water than we do wind. Almost 90% of folks that perishes because of a water type incident, the storm surge, and things like that. Yes, sir.
Quick question. Having lived in Oklahoma for many years, all the cities in Oklahoma have a siren system. So if a tornado warning has been issued, especially if you're in an area where a tornado is coming, they use sirens to start to go off. Is there something like that on the island? Because I haven't seen it. You guys have been very observant. Do we have an alarm system like that? So if some of us like me are not on Facebook, sorry, I know it's whatever. Use an alarm system so that I'm not on Facebook or I'm not looking at my phone. I suddenly hear an alarm. I know that there's the time to get out if I haven't already done.
Right, that is a great question. Luckily here on the coast, mostly what we deal with is water spouts. You know, I think in the 30 years I've been here, we've only had one tornado. It's very minor. You know, being on the coast, it's not real conducive for the production of tornadoes. I don't know, I don't remember a tornado alarm system ever going off in my 30 years that I've been here. You know, we get water spouts quite a lot. Usually as soon as they make landfall, they dump all our water. They dissipate really quickly. So that's a great question.
The question is not so much about whether it's a tornado or not, it's whether if the mandatory evacuation has been declared, is there also a siren system that would go off for some of us that may not be watching that every day?
No, sir. We would, the message would be pushed on the radio, television, all the media outlets. When I say media outlets, I mean also including radio, television, and things like that. Beautiful thing of, you know, a tornado is a spontaneous thing. I was in Central Texas for about 5 years, right in Tornado Alley. You can't really prepare for those hurricanes. We have, you know, typically at least 3-day notice that things are coming. So
within Jamaica Beach, we have our Blackboard notification system, and so
this time of year especially, we encourage everybody to go make sure their information in Blackboard is correct. And from Jamaica Beach perspective, we'll stay in contact with the City of Galveston, the county, and we will follow their evacuation protocol. So if they evacuate, we'll evacuate at the same time. But
But Blackboard will keep you informed of voluntary as well as expected landfall and then mandatory evacuation as well. But also keep in mind that as last year we stated, you might expect that mandatory evacuation and voluntary evacuation a little sooner than historically because of the condition of the roads. You know, we expect it to be extremely challenging to get to Houston, through Houston, however you want to disperse. So last year we sent the same message that we will be looking at probably several hours to half a day earlier evacuation notice. So be prepared that you know you might get that call sooner. But I recommend Blackboard if you're in Jamaica Beach.
And don't forget you can evacuate out this way. Everybody seems to think, oh, there's only one way. It's into town, up 61st to Interstate 45. You can go across the toll bridge out on the west end. It might be actually quicker. But we've discussed those plans in Houston, and we have things, if we have to do a mandatory evacuation, Department of Public Safety, Harris County Sheriff's Office, Houston Police Department is going to do things to facilitate the use of 146, the Beltway, and things like that to go east or west or north. Thank you.
Thanks, Brian. Really appreciate what you said there. We'll move on now to Tim Teachins. He's the head of the Galveston Planning Department. Tim, never thought you'd come up here, did you? Been waiting.
Thanks, Jerry. Appreciate that. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to take a little different tack. I'm going to hit more the recovery aspect of this rather than the response aspects, and just kind of some, pointers to know as property owners what you would be going through if we had a severe storm. There are several different agencies and groups of folks who do a lot of recovery aspects after a storm, including damage assessment. In the city of Galveston, Development Services Department is responsible for private aspects of damage assessment. One of two departments. Public Works sort of looks at our infrastructure damage, and my department looks at the stuff that's on private property. So it's about how it sort of affects you as a business or homeowner. And right after the storm moves through, we do a preliminary windshield assessment, and that's a very rough estimate of damage. And we submit paperwork as quickly as we possibly can for what's called a disaster summary outline, so that this order of magnitude of damage can be at least preliminarily ascertained, and then that helps with the funding decisions and the level of damage that is out there, so that formal disaster declarations can be made. We all know that in the case of hurricane landfall, preparation and expenditure will have begun well in advance of that. But this is sort of the interaction model for various levels. And concurrent with that disaster summary outline, we also initiate in substantial storms, category 2, 3, 4, well, ones as well. We initiate a much more detailed, micro-focused assessment, and that's assessing the specific condition of damage on individual properties. We use a program called the Substantial Damage Estimating Program that FEMA provides to us. And so why do we do this property assessment? The short answer is we're required to do that in order to continue to operate under the NFIP, which we in Galveston joined in 1971, and also per the FEMA CRS program, the Community Rating System, which is a program that basically rewards cities' insurance payers for doing things that are above and beyond our minimum standards in our flood damage prevention ordinance. literally speaking, at this point in time, right now, if you're a Galveston resident, you get 20% off your flood rates. Now, your flood insurance premiums. You may say, well, gosh, my insurance rates are going up. Yes, they are. They're going up across the board. It's going to be 20% less than it would have otherwise been because of that program. But those programs are both required for us to adopt and enforce our flood damage perfection ordinance, which is the tool that we use to permit reconstruction of houses and things like that, businesses, what have you. Unfortunately, with this storm, it's because FEMA requires very specific data about damage, and a lot of that's structural. It's hard to sort of ascertain the amount of damage that isn't structural, like how much beach erosion have we had, those kind of things that are a little harder to put your thumb on. So those small storms have sort of a downside in that, you know, we may not be able to get that federal assistance if it isn't substantial enough. So a couple of things to point out here. Depending on the hurricane severity, not all areas of town will be damaged. Not all buildings will be damaged, but for those that are, we know that we have to conduct that SDE assessment to see if the damage is substantial or not. And that basically is a 50% or greater damage level for the value of your property. The bottom line is that in order for the city to issue a permit to repair the structure, it must be elevated to the base flood elevation. If it's not already, now most homes in Galveston, especially in the West End, already are. So it's not going to be an issue for those, you know, programmatic side of things, but it clearly can be an issue for somebody that has an older home, which isn't, you know, built to the base flood elevation per our FEMA maps, and then, you know, then all of a sudden you have this substantial damage, and you can't get, you know, your home repaired legitimately until it's elevated. I know it's a hard pill to swallow, but that's what we have to do to continue maintaining operation in the NFIP and the CRS program. Because we participate in those two programs, there are that require to elevate. When you do have to elevate and you're in that condition, you become eligible for increased cost of compliance funding, which is a funding amount that comes available after disaster declarations are done. And there's an amount that's can be allocated to assist in the cost of that elevation. It doesn't cover the cost of the entire elevation, but it helps somewhat. So who conducts the SDE analysis? We do that through a consultant team that we've pre-arranged prior to the storms, and then we deploy them when the storm comes through and after the storm comes through. I know, Mayor, you probably have somebody that does that here in your jurisdiction as well. You know, it's a situation where you know, there's a little bit of caution here, because after the aftermath of the disaster is in full swing, and it may appear that the city is taking too long to let you begin to repair your home. That is certainly not our intention, but we have to conduct that process in order to retain the program and those financial incentives that come from that, and federal funding as well. It also may look like we're splitting hairs to get so specific, but we have to evaluate that damage as a ratio of the pre-storm structural value. It also may look like we might be inequitable between properties, but different properties have different levels of investment, different levels of damage, all those different vulnerabilities and things. And so all these things sort of impact that final determination. What can you do though after a storm prior to that SDE analysis is minor work that keeps the structure from being damaged further, like sheetrock removal, things like that. There is a caveat though that you should refrain from structural, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical repair because those require permits for your safety. Things might have shifted, things might have changed during the event, and we work, to permit those as quickly as possible. If it's a severe enough storm, we probably would set up, permit stations out here in the West End as well as our City Hall location. It's a fine line of satisfying these rules that FEMA mandates of us, and then recovering individually as soon as possible. But we would not be able to receive that federal assistance if we're not part of the NFLP, and your federally guaranteed subsidized flood insurance rates, as high as they are, would be even higher if we didn't do that. So with that, I'll take any questions you might have. Does anybody have any? Yes, sir. What else?
There's a couple other tiers of what can be with the community.
That's a great question. So we are in the mid. There's an annual program review that's done, and then there's a 3-year cycle visit that FEMA does with us. We're online this coming fiscal year, I should say, to do our next analysis in Galveston. Because we're a community 6 rating, which means it's basically a program that starts at level 10. The better you are, the more you do, you go down in the rating. Kind of counterintuitive, but that's how it works. We're doing a number of things that we think we're going to be able to qualify for a 5. I don't want to promise that in the upcoming evaluation, but we've been talking to our consultant who helps us through this, and they're fairly confident that if we're doing enough that we can probably qualify as a 5, which would mean a 25% reduction in your rates. Anything else? All right, I'll wrap it up by, I don't see the gentleman that was over there that had the Jamaica Beach shirt on, but it had a phrase on it that said, "Don't worry, beach happy." It's a good way to end it. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tim. We appreciate your time. Okay, let's move now to hurricane recovery lessons learned. We'll first start with Trino Pedraza from the Director of Public Works for the City of Galveston. Trino? There he is. Here he comes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trino Pedraza, Executive Director of Public Works and Utilities for City of Galveston. In our area, we lead everything water, wastewater, streets, traffic, and drainage. With me today in the back is Lonnie Foley, who is my Deputy Director of Public Works and Utilities. He's also a resident of Jamaica Beach, so he has a vested interest here as well. Because of all the things that we oversee, there is no shortage of chaos and there is no shortage of emergency. In one way or another, there's an impact on one utility. So we live in chaos. We're not perfect, but the one thing that all of those emergencies or catastrophic events do for us is it allows us to learn. We've gotten pretty good at having after-action reviews after every one of the failures that we go through, or every one of the emergencies that we go through. We sit down and we talk about all the decisions that we made, which were bad, which could have been done differently, what our prep was like, where we misstepped. And then what we do is everything in our power to make sure that we categorize it and then we mitigate it for the next event. We've gotten pretty good at hardening our system and recovering fast. When it comes to whatever happens this season, we will be ready. Even with the flooding that went on this last weekend, or this last week, we were out and about all over the streets. We had crews mobilized while there was still flooding. throughout the city. One thing that Lonnie would like me to share with everyone is there are areas, maybe not so much here, but there are areas that we put barricades up. We put barricades up because the waters were high and it was dangerous and it was salt water. What we found were residents kept moving the barricades out of the way and continuing to drive, causing waves and whatever other issues might occur, putting themselves in danger. You know, one of the things our deputy city manager shared with me, that it only takes 2 inches to drown. And when we're putting barricades up, there's feet of water. There's feet of water, right? So it's important for everybody to heed the warnings that are put out by your city, by our city. Now, when it comes time for the hurricane storms that roll through, we will prepare our system the best way that we can. We will fill tanks. We will make sure that our water is moving everywhere, and we'll be ready, you know, to rock and roll on the water and wastewater system and debris clearing on the streets. However, once we get to a mandatory evacuation notice, not immediately at that point, but there is a point where we will shut the water off to the west and just past 103rd. We will wait until it's almost dangerous for us to be out there operating the valves. At that point, the only water that the West End is going to have is whatever we leave in the tanks. They'll be full. Isla del Sol, Jamaica Beach, they'll be full. But at that point, that's the only water that'll be there. And so if you hear the emergency evacuation, the mandatory evacuation, you should get out. You should know that. Today, we're different than we were years ago. We have tons of instrumentation throughout the system that didn't exist even just a couple years ago. We know what the pressure is throughout our entire island. We know where water's flowing. We know where sewer's backing up at most places, and we're continuing to grow that. So we'll be able to see what's happening when it's time for recovery, and maybe even during, you know, the failure modes. I believe all of that will help us get the island back in order faster so that people can come back to their areas and assess their homes and whatnot and do what they need to do. Some new technologies that we have out, maybe not here in Jamaica Beach, but throughout the island, is we've installed a new smart water solution system. With that, we have the pressure monitoring, we have water quality monitoring, so we're actually able to see like the chemical makeup of our water throughout the island, all the way to the far tip of the West End. We can see if we have disinfection, what the clarity is like or not like. We also have the ability to remote connect and disconnect 5/8 size meters, which is the typical residential size. A lot of people have larger sizes, but for the 5/8 size, we can remotely connect and disconnect, and we can also partially disconnect. We call that the life sustaining mode. And so I think that'll help us maintain water. But I plan to activate it with permission of our council and our leadership. I plan to activate it during the time of mandatory evacuation, just so that we can recover faster and maintain the water that we do have in our system. At that point, I think I got all I have to say. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Where are information and resources on how the city wants us to begin our cleanup operation? Like, appliances going in a pile, debris goes in a pile. Is any of that available?
So, that one's out of my area. It's Byron. When it comes to cleanup, like as far as where to store your own personal debris, what piles to put it, will that be listed in your pages or the county's pages? So over at the table, there's disaster guide booklets that have that information. Yes, ma'am.
So, for this storm that just happened, we are still finalizing what the exact debris collection will be. So the city has advised me, because I've had a lot of calls, to advise our district people, or anywhere, I guess anyone in the city, pile your debris 4 World Trash Day on Monday, and they will see, especially with the new storm coming in, they will be picking it up, and the plan is to waive any additional charge that is above and beyond what our limitation is.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thanks so much, appreciate your help. Thank you, Marie, for bringing up those items. All right, we'll move on now from Aaron Herrera and Mike Jones from the Texas Department of Emergency Management. Here they come.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, because McDonald's has already stopped serving breakfast right now. Thank you for having us. It's my second time being here. I'm sure Mike's been to many of these, but I always appreciate the outcome and the people who take their time to be here, because you want to be prepared and you want to have information. There was a question earlier of who's new here since Ike, and there was a bunch of hands up. And so this area of Galveston is historical when it comes to damages and impacts by severe weather. The lesson and topic is recovery and lessons learned. When it comes to lessons learned and getting assistance from FEMA, the state of Texas is in constant communication with them, especially before, during, and after an event. Those communications consist of resources and federal assistance. In regards to gathering that type of data, there are assessment tools out there to conduct such on your home, or if you're a small business owner, to conduct those type of assessments. Lessons learned, those assessment tools help us gather information and data, so that way when we're having those communications with FEMA, we have the data right away. We have it live. The city of Galveston spoke about their tool. For the rest of the state of Texas and Jamaica Beach, the state of Texas has the TDM iStat tool. Some of you already got the flyer. We have some back there. I also have a monitor up so you can see the severe weather that struck up North Houston about a month or two ago. I have plots about where every survey landed and how that information helps the state, the county, and the city not only prepare for a request for assistance, but also how bad is bad, who, what, when, where, and why with those types of assessments. So I wanted to share that. I'll be at the table to answer any more questions. We also have information, Laura touched base on it, the STEER program. Being able to have an identifier of who our vulnerable population is in jurisdictions. The jurisdictions have access to that data, so that way they can basically check in on the roster of who's registered on there and what services they're going to need. So if you know someone who may need to be on there, talk to them about it. If you have questions about it, we'll be at the table. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Mike Jones. I'm the Senior Liaison Officer for Galveston County, and I handle the response part. So during the year, we work with Galveston, Jamaica Beach, and we make sure that they are prepared for this, any type of response that may be needed, including evacuation. Everybody's talked about evacuating, and the only thing I can say about it, listen to your elected officials. If they tell you to leave, leave. I'll be sending in resources to assist with that evacuation from all the way from DPS Troopers, Texas Parks and Wildlife, Texas Military Group. They will all be coming in to support the jurisdiction to get out. Galveston County has two hubs. One is over on the mainland, over in the Texas City, and one is here in the city of Galveston. Those are used for individuals who need assistance in getting out. So we bring in charter buses to help these people evacuate. We take them up to the Austin area, maybe San Antonio if it's a medical issue, and we take care of them until the mayor tells us, I want my citizens back, or the county judge says, and we start sending them back at that point. So we help with the preparedness of getting individuals out. A lot of people don't know that over this last week I have had 2 Task Force 1 high profile and boat crews, one here in Galveston and one in Missouri County, to assist if they were needed. This is some of the resources that we bring in before the incident happens to make sure we have the resources here and available.
If the county needs a resource such as the task force, they put in a STAR request and we send them. We just relocated these individuals. Also have 2 battalions of Texas Military Group, one at the Armory in Lamarck and one in the Armory in Angleton with high-profile vehicles if needed. Luckily, they were not needed, but they are staying around just to see for the next few days to make sure everything's good. People talk about the evacuation part, getting out. Everybody said the roads are under construction. Leave early. We have worked with the county and the cities to bump up that timeline. If I need buses, the contracts usually go in about 96 hours out. That's when the state of Texas signs contracts with bus companies to send down to help with that evacuation. We start paying money at that time. It runs us about $80,000, $90,000 a day just to have those buses on standby. So we're here to support and help. But I tell you right now, people have asked me, how about contraflow? That's a bad word. We don't talk about contraflow because we cannot do it. We cannot get you out on contraflow. Contraflow for this area starts on I-45, starts on the other side of the Woodlands. That's where contraflow goes in. Brookshire over on I-10. We do not do contraflow on 59 or 146. So these are the areas. So it would take, hundreds of personnel to block off every driveway, every entrance ramp to that oncoming traffic so that we can get people through there. And then it stacks back up in the Dallas area. But if it has to be done and the governor orders it on the request of the county judge and stuff, TxDOT and DPS put the plan together that they already have. So listen to your elected officials. We are here to assist. I will have extra personnel here in the county and the cities just to push these resources that may be needed. So don't get frustrated if you come up to a roadblock and there's a young DPS trooper there that's fresh out of the academy and he's been told by that sergeant not to let anybody through. Nobody's going through. So he's going to make you turn around because he's more worried about the sergeant than he is you. But we're here to assist, and hopefully we won't just go through another year or so. But anything that the county, state needs, or the city needs, we're here to support you.
Thanks,
So for some of you all, we have 8 weather radios that we're giving out just for goodies. Check the back of your chair. There should be a black Sharpie dot. Front corner, I'm sorry. Check the front corner. If you
On the
have
side, right, not underneath, front right corner.
And the
Front right
where's
corner.
Melissa, where did you put the dots at?
Front right corner.
Front right corner. So raise your hand. We have some weather radios that we're going to give out. And Kendall's going to hand them out. So just keep your hand up if you found a black marker. But again, Mayor, thank you so much for having us. And thank you all.
Thank you. Really appreciate the awards too. Where are you here? Centerpoint Energy, Ryan.
Sorry, everybody, I forgot to mention this earlier. There were 2 highlights of this most recent storm that I also wanted to mention. One is any down power line and or street light, anything to that effect, please consider it as energized. Do not try to move it. Do not try to make things safe for other people. Please treat that as a safety hazard. And so we're all good there. And I just forgot what the second thing was going to be, so that's great. Oh, now I remember. So as our crews are out here to restore power, please tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell everybody, please don't approach the linemen. It's not the fact that they don't want to tell you when the lights are going to come back on. It's not the fact that they don't want to be kind to you or anything like that. It's you are delaying them getting the lights back on. So if you see a neighbor and it looks like they're going to approach the lineman, just grab them by the shirt and say, please don't. Just please don't. It would be a great benefit to us because I can't tell you how often I had to follow around a crew to tell people, please back away from the crew as they are working. Those guys are trying to get the lights on as quickly as possible, and anybody going to try to talk to them limits their the ability to be able to do that. So, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks again, Ryan. Appreciate it. Kendall, do you have stuff you want to give out?
Well, we have two left, so I guess look to chairs close to you to see if you have. She had her hand up, and I got one right back here. All right, those are the last two.
There you go.
Good enough. Bree, I understand you want to talk. Come on up here. This is State Senator Mace Middleton's office, the administrative assistant.
Hi everybody, my name is Bree Little and I'm the District Director over Galveston County for Senator Middleton. And unfortunately he wasn't able to be here with you all this morning, but I do have some remarks from him to share. So just so y'all know that our office is here for y'all as a resource all the time, but especially in the event of a natural disaster. And so we work closely with TDEM on disaster preparedness and in the event of a natural disaster. Senator Middleton was here for his constituents during the winter freeze, and he will be here in the event of a hurricane. But I just wanted to talk to you all a little bit about the backup power package. Last session, Senator Middleton and his colleagues passed the backup power package, and that is a standalone backup power source that can provide at least 48 hours of power in the event of an outage, such as natural gas or propane generator. The package is $1.8 billion in state grants and zero interest loans for backup power packages for facilities in Texas that are critical for public health, safety, and well-being. This is for essential community services that are often forgotten, like gas stations, pharmacies, kidney dialysis centers, and other typically non-governmental service communities needed after a storm. And of course, local government qualifies for these grants. So those are the remarks that I have from Senator Middleton.
Thanks so much, Bree. Thank the Senator also. Okay, Joe Campley, I got you already. Did I earn it right across? Maybe I did. I have down Kimberly Denasty, Executive Director of the Parks Board of Trustees, but I don't see her here. And I did see, oh, here it comes, okay. You'll be able to speak.
I am not Kimberly Denasty. I am Vince Lorfitz. I'm the Executive Director of Coastal Operations for the Park Board. Kimberly did ask, she had an emergency come up this morning, and asked if I could just give a couple talking points and high-level items for the Park Board. So just wanted to give everybody some assurance that each year we do an annual assessment of our hurricane preparedness plan that has already been conducted, and our tabletop exercise internally within our groups have been completed. Really just wanted to highlight a couple of different departments of the Park Board that are kind of critical in this environment. And that's going to obviously be our Beach Patrol. We have Lieutenant Curto with us today. Our Beach Patrol, everyone knows what they do. Everybody sees them out there, risking their lives all the time to help save not only our residents, but also our visiting guests. And then also our coastal zone management. And there's two key components of the coastal zone management team. And that's really to get the debris off the beach, and that is before a storm. So like last week, you saw about 4,000 trash cans being removed off the beach, put into storage, and those are being redeployed as we speak, as well as like the lifeguard stands. So lifeguard stands, you'll see those going back on the beach this morning. I think we got all but 2 or 3 redeployed this morning, about 2 o'clock in the morning. So those are out there. Beyond that, the Park Board, we are an agent of the City of Galveston. We do a lot of coordination with the City of Galveston, and we get a lot of direction for emergency preparedness and also from the recovery piece. And one of our biggest lessons learned post-Ike, I was not here, but this is definitely something that we've learned, is that the other agency within the Park Board is our tourism development group, and we will not promote tourism until the city says we are ready to have tourists back on the island again. So that is definitely a key piece. And and that's in coordination with the city of Galveston to ensure that our utilities and our infrastructure and other things can support, you know, additional guests beyond our residents. Any questions for the board? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks so much. Great to have you. I don't believe Chief Doug Valley of the Galveston Police Department is here. But somebody's going to speak for him. Galveston Police Department, here we go.
I'm definitely not Doug Valley. He's about 2 foot taller than I am. He had a death in the family, couldn't make it. He just wanted me to reassure you guys the partnership that we have together with Galveston PD is incredible. We're going to have all the help we need. Oh, for those who don't know me, I'm Raymond Garvey. I'm your Jamaica Beach Police Chief. Thank you, thank you. Chief Valley is a good friend of mine, and I sure we meet all the time, even with these folks over here. We go to meetings all the time. We're ready to go. It's like a plan in place. It's like a SWAT raid. We make a plan, we go in. Sometimes things go south, but we do have a plan in place, and we are ready to act. The officers are ready to respond. Your safety is our #1 priority, and I'm gonna beat you up about the evacuation thing. And of every meeting that we go to, that becomes a topic of discussion about the people that do not leave. I get it. I didn't leave back in '95 and nothing hit and everything. I get it. Folks, just leave. Please help us. Chief Biden meant what he said. Chief Baden meant what he said. We're not gonna be able to get to you. When it's time for us to leave, we have to leave too. And we're not gonna be able to come back for you. Just go stay somewhere for a few days. It turns out that nothing happened. Guess what? Nothing happened. We'll come back home. It's better than sitting there and being trapped, stuck, and an officer or a firefighter losing their life in the line of duty trying to get to you. So we can't express that enough. But again, I want to thank Mayor and Council for giving us the resources we need to be here for you guys. And I promise you, we're ready to go when you call us. Thank you.
Can you remind people of identification?
Okay, so yes, when these checkpoints are going to be set up, you're going to need to have your IDs, a water bill. You're going to have to give us something that tells us officially that allows you back in. If you need anything, come see our staff here. We'll get you the right credentials you need to get back in, even if just a weekender, full-timer. And that's the thing, some of you, I think I just talked to a gentleman in the back that lives in Spring. You know, we're gonna have a roster that shows who lives. The girls have that prepared for us, but you just can't come in just because. If you don't show us something, you're gonna be sent away, you're gonna be angry. We gotta do what's right for the community. It's just like the beach here. We had to fight people off who had to go over there and look and see what what was out there in the water. They're going to keep coming. So remember that. Make sure you have all that ready. Make sure your IDs, your driver's license are up to date. If not, your water bill's current. It has your name on it. That's what we're going to need to get you back in.
One of the questions we've had is with the proliferation of short-term rentals, the owners aren't going to be coming back in. It's going to be their representatives and their contractors. Have you and Valley worked out how we are going to ascertain the validity of those folks coming back in?
Okay, we're still talking about it. I can tell you this, that's not going to work. We're going to have some kind of method for them to contact us ahead of time, send something over to the city, to our city, through email or something saying, hey, I'm letting Ayers Construction over here. He's coming to look at my house. If it doesn't say that, and with permission, you're just not going to come around looking and possibly stealing and thieving and trying to find your own work. If you're not on this official list that we have to come through, sorry, you're going to be turned around. That's just the way it is. Your property is priority to us. Your safety is priority to us.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Yes. Are you talking about 3915 being blocked and needing ID to get further? My house is right past the street.
That is correct. So you're going to have a checkpoint in Brazoria County coming this way. Ours will be at the end of the seawall. That's where they've always been. So that's where we'll be stopping you, and we'll check you before you can even come down 3005. Yes, ma'am.
We've had checkpoints coming into Jamaica Beach and the Bay. Are we going to have that because of bad hurricane?
Again, resources is going to be a big issue depending on how bad we get hit. Remember, those checkpoints got to be manned 24/7. Yeah. Again, that's what we were told by the state and the county. That's where they've been there in the causeway. That's the one that we've made an agreement on, that we would have officers there from Jamaica Beach So we're doing what they've asked us. But there will be officers in town. So it doesn't change anything other than that's the checkpoint. But if we think something's wrong, or you call in, hey, there's a vehicle going around here, we don't like it, we're going to check them out. So people are going to try to find their way to get around. Maybe they got around someone. I doubt it very seriously, because I remember there was a lot of people saying they were upset a few years back. Those checkpoints were turning people around left and right. Yes, sir?
Does the sticker work, or do you have to have one?
You have to have sticker one.
Yeah, we talked about stickers. We haven't gotten to that yet. But right now it's going to have to be your ID or that water bill. So we're telling you in advance, get one, throw it in your glove box like an insurance card, an expired one, whatever. Just have it in there, because it's easy. We'll have a female, one of our staff that we can probably reach out to. They can check in real quick. Yep, he's good to go. He lives over here in Jamaica Beach Road. We're good. Any questions? Hey, it means a lot to see y'all here. I'm going to brag about you, because if you're here, you care. So thank y'all so much for being here.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it very much. Okay, well here's an old friend, Galveston Insurance Associates, Michael Ruiz. He never ages, so.
Thank you very much, Jerry. Very kind. I have 3 young children now, so my aging is going to go up quickly. So, look, everyone's done a great job talking today. I'm going to try to talk a little bit about insurance and preparing your house before and post-hurricane. That's going to be the things that are going to get us back on our feet here on the island. We are a full-service agency, so we can do all your home insurance, your autos, but also your commercial stuff. Being here over 100 years, we kind of pride ourselves in always being here after the storm, right? So we're going to take care of you guys before and after. The 3 insurance policies you're going to have is your homeowner's insurance, which is going to be, most of you used it during the freeze. It's going to take care of your property from freeze damage, fire damage, theft stuff during hurricanes. Windstorm is going to be essentially everything top down, if you will. If your roof's taken off, compromised, if your windows are blown out, or siding your stuff blown off your roof, and any subsequent damage that comes into your house because of that, that's all going to be windstorm related. Then flood insurance, essentially just rising water. As you know, not a whole bunch of coverage below the first living level, but flood insurance is necessary around here. When we're talking windstorm insurance policies, one thing that we want to make sure everyone has, it's on a TWIA form, it's called endorsement 321. It's the wind-driven rain endorsement. Make sure you have that on your policy. I'll say it again, endorsement 321, wind-driven rain. So what that is when you have indirect loss to your home, when you don't have a puncture of the exterior envelope, when water is hitting your windows at 60, 70 miles an hour for a couple days at a time, that water's going to find its way in. A lot of you, I see some nodding heads, you've probably had sheetrock damage, flooring damage, that kind of stuff from wind-driven rain. That endorsement has to be on your policy to pick that coverage up. It's probably the single most used endorsement we see during hurricanes, because a lot of houses have that loss versus a total roof coming off or so forth. Now, when we talk about preparing your house for a hurricane, I think it'd be a good idea to do now, unless you're going to make substantial changes to your home before we get deep into hurricane season. Go ahead and take photos of your house from the exterior, all 4 sides. You're kind of preparing it like a crime scene, for lack of a better way to put it, right? But videos work well. Walk through your home, video and photo all your belongings and so forth. You don't know what's going to be there when you come back, right? And the quickest way to help an adjuster out is to have photos prior, so you can itemize what was there, and they can itemize the damage and get you back on your feet. When we're talking about coming back after a hurricane, we want to make sure we have copies of our insurance policies, copies of contact information for your agent, but then also, this has been very helpful in recent storms. A lot of your insurance companies, especially Texas windstorm, you can have online logins where you can turn in your claim off-site. So you may know folks that are here or see photos of your house from off the island. You can make claims while you're not here. And I suggest that because it may take adjusters 3, 4, 5 days to get to you, just with the amount of claims that we probably have in mass events. And then with the Texas windstorm policy, the rates stay the same regardless of the amount of claims you make, right? So if you think you might have damage to reach your deductibles, go ahead and make that claim. If you come in and things aren't crazy or below the deductible, you can just close the claim out. Let's see, post-storm, when you come back, you find your home with damage and so forth, you have a right as a policy holder to repair your property from future damage. So what I would suggest is taking pictures of the damage, kind of in the same format you did before you left, and you can start pulling out damage from your home, just photo copy of it so that you can prove prove the adjuster the damage you had. Obviously keep as much of it on site as you can, just to prove that they came out of your home and so forth. Then try to help the adjusters by itemized listings. If you have a lot of interior damage, itemize what you see as damage, what's not working, so they can, as I said, get you back on your feet a little bit faster. That's kind of it from a claim scenario standpoint. I can answer some general questions as far as policy goes, if you have any. Yes, sir.
Could you repeat that waiver one more time? Wind-driven?
Yeah, the endorsement is wind-driven rain, and it's endorsement 321 on a Texas windstorm policy.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. And then when you're coming back to file your claim, most insurance policies allow you up to 60 days to make an insurance claim. So if listen to your emergency officials about getting back. If it's a week or two you got to stay, you can still file your insurance claims as you come. TWIA actually allows you up to a year from the date of claim. So be safe when you're coming back, and then let's get your homes back put together. All right, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks, Michael. Always great to have you. By the way, the booths are on both sides if you'd like to visit them after the meeting. Okay, I know Peter Davis wasn't able to make it from the Parks Board Chief of Police, but we do have down Lieutenant Austin Kerwin. Is he here? There you are. There you go.
How's it going? Lieutenant Austin Kerwin. Beach Patrol is ready to go. We work with every agency on the island, Galveston PD, Fire Department, EMS, Jamaica Beach. We're all out here all the time. Work with our CERT members as well throughout the season. So we're ready to go. We're constantly working on our coordination between each other with all the different agencies on the island. So we're ready to go. Dan kind of took a little bit of my thunder from me. Go to our website, galvestonbeachshow.com. We fly our flag color there every day. Please check your flags before you go out there. Talk to a lifeguard. If you see flags are raised, lifeguard's on scene and needs to work in that area. So talk to a lifeguard who's out there, figure out a safe spot to stay, to swim and have a good time out there. Always swim with a buddy and always swim with a lifeguard. So if you have any specific questions for Beach Patrol. Sounds good, thank you.
Thank you. Well, we're almost at the end of our program. We're going to have a thank you for Kendall Francis. He's the city administrator for the city of Jamaica Beach, and also for Robert Quintero, who's really helped us put these programs together. And next I'm going to turn this over to the mayor. And one last thing. I want to see Taz Jones is here. She's an older person on the city of Jamaica Beach. She makes a recording of these sessions. She's done it for our group, West Galveston Property Owners Association, for many months now. But it will be on our website in case you missed it here. Thank you so much. Well, thanks again, Mayor. We love having Jamaica Beach here. And here you go.
Yeah, we appreciate all that you do to help coordinate this. This man does an amazing job every year doing this, so he deserves a special thanks. Just 2 quick notes. Number 1, for Jamaica Beach debris, we are picking up on Monday. And then also, I just put out a plea to everybody on the West End. Marie alluded to it as well. Clean up your properties, okay? The debris, we've seen just a small taste of it with Alberto. But think about a larger event where more of your stuff will move to your neighbor. So please, please, please clean up. And we have hot dogs provided by Lighthouse Charity. So please help yourself. And that's all I have. Thank you very much for coming. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Jamaica Beach. I don't know if any of you remember Ike, what happened. Jamaica Beach's open air doors. They had the Salvation Army here, they had the Red Cross, they had food, water. They just really helped out the West End. So we're always indebted to Jamaica Beach.